What's your earliest memory? Maybe your first pet, first day of kindergarten. For me, it was being in my crib and my sister put me there and I was shaking the bars and screaming at her. Well, my guest today says that he remembers being in his mother's womb. Alan Brasington, after breaking out on his own, so to speak, has had a career full of adventures. Alan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am really excited to just dive in, but I've got to address the very first thing, which is you remember being born.
Yes, I do. I remember before being born as well, and there was what was amazing for me, and perhaps it was because my parents were so young. My mother was 16 when I was born. My father was 17.
Oh my gosh.
And but I remember being aware of sounds coming from outside wherever I was. I didn't know where I was, and I would hear these, and sometimes there would be laughter, you know, and I thought, if only I knew what that was, what those sounds were, I'd know what I was doing here, because it was very uncomfortable in there besides.
I could imagine. I could imagine. Plus, you couldn't see anything.
No.
But you weren't aware of what vision was at that point anyway.
No, it was just dark. I do remember sometimes I would breathe in, and then I would choke because all this liquid would go down. I'd be choking and kind of moving around. And
well, let's fast forward a few years. And I remember you talking about you were working your way through school and you were a waiter.
Oh, well, I was, no, I had graduated from college and had been teaching English.
Okay.
And I read in the New York Times that there was a school in New York called the American Academy of Dramatic Art. So I left school after my first year of teaching, went to the American Academy and ran out of money. And I went back home and became a waiter at the world's largest kosher hotel. It was called the Concord in Kiamisha Lake, New York. And I was the worst waiter ever because I was more interested in talking to the people than I was to waiting on them. One day, I don't know if you want to know about this, but one day a man I was waiting on, he and his wife were sitting there, and he said, you're a terrible waiter. But he said, I may have an idea for you. I am the head of the Rotary Foundation, International Rotary Foundation, and we look for people like you to study abroad. He didn't help me any further than just opening the door for me. But I got this scholarship, a Rotary scholarship. I studied it in England, and then I got another scholarship from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and was able to study there. And it was pretty amazing for somebody like me who came from a pretty poor area in upstate New York to be able to, first of all, I was the first person in my family to go to college, to teach school, and then to study in England and at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
Had you ever thought that I want to study in England at any point, or I wanted to live in England at any point, or was this sort of because of the Rotary Club and that opportunity, it presented itself? So you attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. Art.
Only one, yeah, art.
And then you came back to the U.S.
Mm-hmm. My first job was with the APA Repertory Company at the Lyceum Theater on Broadway in New York for a year, and I did Hamlet and Cock-a-Doodle Dandy and the Cocktail Party and a number of other things. I worked with Helen Hayes and Eva Le Gallienne and Nancy Walker, a number of very prominent people in the theater.
At that point, did you think, I am at the pinnacle of my life, I am at the pinnacle of my career, it's not going to get any better than this? Or
No, I was making $89 a week on Broadway. And so, no, I never felt I was at the pinnacle. I don't know that anyone does. It always reminds me of the story of someone asking Cary Grant, "Oh, I wish I could be Cary Grant," and he said, "I wish I could be Cary Grant too." So I think, you know, we're all always working, and wondering where it's going to lead. Certainly for me, my life was very unspecific, and so many people reached out their hands to me, and I took their hands and went wherever it was to go. Mm-hmm. So I went to Hollywood for a while. I didn't care for Hollywood. I much prefer acting on a stage where I am right there with the audience. It's different for me.
So then, fast forwarding, you found yourself some years later pursuing a very different career.
Yes.
And tell me about
well,
that.
I wasn't making enough in New York as an actor to live the life that I wanted to live, and so I began by providing vintage clothing for films. So I worked on Mommy Dearest and, you know, a number of other films. I went from clothing to quilts and other antique pieces, and then opened a shop on 76th and Columbus in Manhattan. I discovered that I didn't need to open a store. I needed to close the store, and I needed to get people what they want stores. And I ended up getting 1,200 old Chevy trucks for Old Navy stores, and working with...
Wait a minute. 1,200 old Chevy, like pickup trucks?
Yes, full size.
How do you source? I mean, where do you find that many?
Well, at that time, they were in people's backyards with trees growing through them, you know, and I would have to send people out to purchase them, pull them back to garages, take them apart. Then they had to be cut into pieces so they would fit in elevators, because sometimes they had to go up to the 10th floor or the 5th floor and down long winding hallways. And you know, that was
I'm really I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around the idea of sourcing a pickup truck, having it all cleaned up, then cutting it into manageable pieces to transport it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was quite...
And then reassembling it at the final display point in the store, mm-hmm. and multiply that by 1,200.
All right. Sometimes the store was built around the truck. The truck got in first because there was no way that a truck would be able to get into an elevator.
How did they get it out?
I have no idea.
That wasn't your problem.
But I did the first installment of a truck. The trucks went to the Philippines, they went to the Middle East as well, and then every store in the United States and Canada.
So let's fast forward some years, and you moved to Sarasota. When was that?
2014.
And what prompted that?
My partner had pancreatic cancer. For some reason, I have no idea why, he wanted to come to Sarasota. Well, he had never lived here, but his parents had lived here in the 50s and 60s.
And his younger brother.
And his younger brother was the weatherman at
Channel 7, ABC.
Channel 7,
yeah.
ABC.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
Yes, right. And so I did not want to come. I didn't want to leave New York. I'm sure you could see the skid marks from my feet all the way from here to New York City because I didn't want to come. And 11 days after we arrived, he died.
So sorry.
So I was in this big house wondering what I should do with the rest of my life. And then Annie Morrison, whom I was supposed to do a Broadway show with many years ago, it ended up that I got another Broadway show, and so I wasn't able to do that show. I said, I'm here, and she said, I'm doing something called Sarah Solo, and I said, I'll do something for you. So I showed her what the poem of my life, and she said, oh, let's do it. I did it, and after that, the critics came and a number of people, and I became a bit more popular here. My life is, gotten much larger. I'm writing more now, I'm acting more. I've met a number of really wonderful, lovely people who have come here pretty much to retire and yet are interested in the theater, interested in writing and acting and directing and that sort of thing.
And I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned, that people come to Sarasota to retire. Mm-hmm. But they don't
retire, no.
They don't. They find, and throughout this program, we're going to be talking more about the concept of the second mountain, which is a book written by David Brooks, and people climbing that second mountain. Mm-hmm. And even though it's very flat here in Sarasota, for many it is their second mountain. Do you feel like you're kind of climbing your second mountain?
Well, I'm sliding down the other side. But I'm not climbing it. No, I pretty much, I think that the people who come here, the people that I've met, know who they are. They've learned who they are, and they know what they want. And that's quite exciting, enticing, interesting, all of those things. Sarasota is a melting pot. Of course, America, they say, is a melting pot, but this is a melting pot of professional people. They want to do something else. And they don't all want to be actors and writers and things, but they find that they're the audience.
You touched on about people moving here and figuring out who they are. And you wrote a short play recently, not that long ago, called I Am They. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that, because that is about somebody figuring out and moving forward with who they are.
Well, it's a man named John Dark who says that when he was sitting under his mother's piano as she played and he was drawing, he knew when he was 3 years old that he should have been a girl. The play is a duet between John and Jean, who are the same person.
But you don't play both roles.
No,
in this.
I play one role, and Susan Montel, I hope that you'll have her on sometime, plays myself as the female, or John as the female. So it's a man who for 35 years lived as a man, met a woman in college, married her. They had 4 children, and when the children they thought were old enough to understand, she helped him have the operation.
And we have a clip from I Am They, and I think we're going to pick it up at that point when John decides to move forward with his transition, her transition. We'll take a look.
And it wasn't until our children were old enough to understand that we decided it was time
for me to become the woman I truly felt myself to be. I couldn't wait any longer.
I'd spent half my life waiting, traveling to foreign worlds.
When actually all I really wanted to do was travel inside myself to discover my own foreign world. the woman I wanted to be.
First, Muriel and I had to get divorced.
A woman couldn't marry another woman when I was 45.
Muriel and I have remained together. In fact, she helped me through my several surgeries.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Oh, thank you.
The whole idea of, and even visually, just having just two heads, there are no distractions. It's just you and Susan reading. Mm-hmm. Where'd you come up with that idea?
I read a story about a gentleman in England who was a world traveler, and it was his story after he became a woman, how he was treated so differently as pretty much a second-class citizen.
You seem to always have a project going on. You seem to always have something going on. What's on the horizon? Anything you want to share?
Well, I'm writing 2 plays at the moment. One is an Irish play about an island that no one can find, except in 512 A.D., a saint, Brendan, found the island and went there with 15 monks to spend 2 weeks on the island, and when he got back to the ship, it was a year later. Anyway, that, and then I'm writing another play. I won't tell you about that.
All right, we'll look forward, and maybe, hopefully, you'll come on again and we can talk about these other projects. So thank you so much for being on Suncoast People.
My pleasure.
And we'll have you on again. I want to hear more stories that you're writing. And thank you so much for watching and participating just by watching. And I look forward to getting questions or emails if you know somebody who has an interesting story to tell, someone perhaps who, as David Brooks has coined, climbed their second mountain. Would love to hear that. And you can find the email link right below me. So for today, this is Suncoast People. I'm Robert Tinn, and we'll see you next time.